"What, are you one of them constitutionalists?" That's what the sheriff said. I said, "Aren't you supposed to be?" It all started one day. I hopped in my little farm car and I was heading up to the gas station to get some fuel for my tractor. And a sheriff was parked on the side of the road. Well, next thing I know, the sheriff on a private road has got his lights on and he's chasing me on a private road. And so I pull over and I find out what the problem is, because maybe he needs some help, right? I mean, because why else would he be pulling me over on a private road while I'm traveling to the store, right? Anyway, so he pulls me over and he comes up to the car, and then as he walks up, he says, "Oh, okay, never mind." And I said, "No, what? You've pulled me over. What? Why did you bother me?" He says, "Well, I thought the car was stolen." I said, What? I said, "It's a stupid ass little Subaru farm car. Why would somebody steal this?" And he says, "Well, it doesn't have any plates on it." And I said, "It doesn't need to have plates on it. Why would it need to have plates on it? I'm driving it around my farm. If I'm not driving it around my farm, I'm only occasionally using it to get from here to there." Right? I mean, why? And he's like, "Oh, wait a minute. What, are you one of them constitutionalists?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Aren't you supposed to be?" And he says, "Oh, you're one of those sovereign citizens, rights to travel and stuff." I was like, "No, I'm not a sovereign citizen. That's an oxymoron. I am a free human being that if I want to get from here to there, I do have the right to be able to use a public right-of-way." And I said, "Besides, why are you assuming my guilt?" I said, "Has somebody called this car in stolen?" "Well, no." I said, "Then why did you pull me over?" He said, "Well, you need to get a bigger sticker for the back of your car." I said, "That's the sticker that the state issued." And he says, "Well," I was like, "Dude," I was like, you need to learn your job, because you're being a tyrant. You're assuming my guilt. You're using emergency flashers to pull me over when no emergency is present. You're threatening extortion. Because he even said, "Oh, you're lucky we're not on a public road. I'd drag you out of your car for doing this shit." And that's when I was like, "You're a tyrant." I said, "Do you really feel like a big man trying to make poor people poor and assuming people's guilt and violating the due process of law?" I said, "Do you know what a crime is versus what, just breaking a law is? Because I've not committed a crime. There's no victim of harm or loss, right? I mean, come on, who's the complainant? Are you the complainant? Because that's a conflict of interest. You can't be working for the entity that will benefit off of my incarceration or the fines that are imposed upon me. You can't be a paid complainer." I was like, when you realize the atrocities he says, "They're not atrocities. We've been doing this for a long time." I said, "Just because you've been doing it for a long time doesn't make it right. The Nazis were doing it for a long time until it wasn't right, and they were publicly executed." I was like, "I don't think you're operating out of maliciousness, but I think you're operating out of ignorance. And like you guys tell us, ignorance of the law is no excuse. Well, the same works for you too, because we've paid for you to go to school. We've paid for you to be educated in the job that you're performing as a public servant." I'm a peace officer for Free Will Ministry. We handle our own security affairs, but we only initiate violence if it's the last option, and violence should only be used in an act of defense, right? Or in the defense of somebody else if they want your help, right? I mean, because somebody might be in a form of mutual combat, right? Mutual consensual combat. They don't want your help. Don't be stepping in. Mind your own business. But violence, and although we need to be able to be good at it, it should be limited to only acts of defense. If we're ever initiating force against a non-violent person, we really need to check ourselves. So I've been highly critical of law enforcement because they're not being held accountable for their actions against the people. They're arresting people regularly, throwing them in front of a judge when no victim has been created. And that's wrong. And one thing we need to recognize is that is a felony. It's a deprivation of a human right. And under 18 U.S.C. 241, a deprivation of a human right, they can be punished. And if there's two or more of them doing it, then they're also subject to the conspiracy charge, which is 242. Look it up, right? And the things that I'm talking about, these rights to travel, these are all substantiated by long-standing Supreme Court decisions. And that was the other thing. He says, I don't care what the Supreme Court says. And I said, what? I said, you don't care what the Constitution means and says? Because that's your job. You are supposed to protect and maintain the Constitution is being honored in the county that you're employed as a sheriff. The sheriff is the highest authority in a county, right? And that's why it's really, really important for our sheriffs to be educated at the minimum, because our sheriffs need to be able to hold city police and state police and federal agencies and any agencies that want to operate and seek a jurisdiction or seek an authority over somebody in their county. It needs to be aligned with the constitutional limitations of those entities. When our sheriffs don't care what the Supreme Court says, I'm not going to mention the guy's name because he's probably 26 or 27 years old. He's in ego, he's in ignorance, but really, ignorance of the law is no excuse. And then I talked to a supervisor because, that's something that we need to do if somebody's not doing their job correctly. And his supervisor said that he'll make sure that, everything's done. And the supervisor offered to accept a complaint or, for me to file a criminal complaint against him. And I said, no. I said, if you talk to him and he recognizes what he did was wrong and he stops doing it, I won't have to pursue this, and I don't want to. I don't think people need to be punished for a simple mistake. But once you've been made aware of the behavior that isn't right, it isn't legal, it isn't moral, and if you don't change it, that's when, I don't care if you do time or taken to whatever level it needs to be of incarceration or public humiliation. There's a sheriff just drove by too. Funny. So luckily he's not flipping around and turning me over because he doesn't see my license plates. Have a good day.